There we are. We're live. Welcome to RE Journals, Breaking Through the Disruption, our webinar series. Thanks for joining us. We've got 5 great panelists today to talk real estate, COVID-19, and what's going on in the markets. We'll get started with a quick video. Again, thank you for joining us. RE Journals, Midwest Real Estate News. We also have Illinois Real Estate Journal, Minnesota Real Estate Journal, Red News Texas, Chicago Industrial Properties. Published 6 publications in 17 different states. We would like to be holding one of our 104 live events in Detroit right now, but that's not possible. I heard a rumor about a virus, and it turned into an epidemic. So we're doing the best we can to help everybody get together. Without these folks on your screen right now, SIOR, Encore, Marcus and Millichap, BBG, SparrowHawk, Corfac, CCIM, and Northwind, without people like you, we wouldn't be able to do this. So we greatly appreciate your support and allowing us to set up these webinars. We've been doing roughly 2 a day now for 3 weeks, and we'll continue to do that until this is over, until we can get together live events again. Couple of quick housekeeping items. If you're watching right now, if you're one of the 150 or so people online and you have connection issues, there's a button at the top that says reconnect. That's the best way to reset your system. So right now I'm showing we have 5 bars, so it's not me, it's you if you get stuck. But so if you hear somebody crackle up or you see their picture freeze up, hit that reconnect button. If that doesn't work, make sure you're using Google Chrome. That's the browser we've had the best luck with. And if you still have issues, just close your browser down and open it up again, and that almost always solves it. You can also view this on your cell phone if you're looking at it on a computer. We have polls to the right if you're watching on your computer, or below you if you're on your phone. I'll put up a poll in a little bit, but this is more important. In the chat room, click on your chat and enter in your name and what company you're with and what part of the nation you're in. We do have people from all over the country, so make sure you do that. Then you can network with other people in the room. This is also where you're going to be able to ask questions of the panelists through this chat room section. I will mark them as a question if you ask one, and I'll make sure the panelists get that. Last thing for housekeeping, we have been recording all of our webinars, and we now have a YouTube channel. I'm so progressive, 47 years old, and I have a YouTube channel. That's a little. My kids are amazed. They tell me we don't do it right, though, so we got a little bit of work to do. Okay, but that's rejournals.com video replay. I'll email that out to you when this is all done, and we'll get this up online. All right. Thanks, everybody. Well, let's go around and introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your sector. And we're 5 weeks in, I believe, to COVID-19. Where are things at for you right now? Start with Evan.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm Evan Lyons with Encore Real Estate. We are a commercial real estate brokerage firm out of Southeast Michigan, Farmington Hills specifically, about an hour north of Detroit. We transact various product types, but our bread and butter is retail all over the country. We are hunkering down like so many, but doing what we can to keep transactions together, put new ones together, and offer any other advisory services along the way to our clients.
Steve, why don't you give it a shot?
Thank you. First, I'd like to wish everybody well in this very crazy time that we're facing. I never imagined we'd all be hunkered in trying to fight a health crisis. But I'm with Marc Millichap. I run our Detroit office. Marc Millichap is an investment-only brokerage company. We focus on all product types. So in our office, we have 50 agents and covering all product types, again, from the investment transaction perspective.
Hi, my name is Aaron Metaj. I'm with Northwind Financial. We're a direct bridge lender. We cover all 50 states. Very niche lender in that we look for projects that have upside equity. through rehab, renovation, or build out. Through these trying times, we've changed our focus. We were big into the strip malls and office buildings, of course, multifamily, but instead of changing our guidelines, we've changed our focus in that we are looking strictly for multifamily at this time during these most difficult times. And yeah, it's very, very trying out there right now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for your time. I'm Marc Nassif with BBG. I run the Detroit office in our Michigan practice. BBG is a commercial real estate due diligence firm. We offer appraisal, valuation services, and engineering and assessment services. We're the largest independent valuation firm in the country, and by that I mean we specialize in non-conflicting business lines. We don't do brokerage, capital markets. Our goal is to be a one-stop shop to answer any questions about commercial real estate. Over the last probably 45 days has just been to try and add some transparency to what we're witnessing in the market for our clients.
Excellent. Oh, Alfredo, I'm going to put his slide up real quick. I know he was on a webinar with us earlier and had some connection issues, but you'll be able to hear him just fine kind of as we go along. Are you there? Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm here. Todd, I apologize about the poor quality of the connection I have here. I'm Alfredo Gutierrez, founder of SparrowHawk. SparrowHawk is a merchant investor exclusively in industrial real estate. We've owned product across the United States and have been active in the Detroit market in the past. It is a market that is on our list to get reacquainted with, and hopefully once this pandemic passes by, we'll have the opportunity to work in that market. I appreciate putting on this webinar, and just want to express that SparrowHawk's thoughts and prayers are with everybody that is affected with this coronavirus, and we want to salute our health professionals and those on the front line helping to fight this war. And we're looking forward to getting back to working safely with our tenants and with all you guys out in Detroit and other places in the nation.
Awesome. Well, Marc, I'm gonna pick on you first because you probably got the bird's eye view of real estate right now. That everybody needs an appraiser of all the different food groups and stuff. So give us a quick snapshot of what the appraisal world is thinking of real estate values today.
Yeah, thank you. It's obviously challenging because in a traditional functioning market, our goal is to go out, look at an asset, look at historical trailing data, survey current market participants, and draw that up and bundle it into an opinion of value. Obviously, the world kind of turned on its head about 45 days ago. So the position we find ourselves in now is how relevant is data that happened 6 months ago, 9 months ago, 12 months ago to what we're looking at. And it's been interesting because, like you said, we're in a unique position because we're able to see all property types. We're working internationally. You know, right now I have active assignments on my desk literally from Hawaii to London. So it's across all property types, everything from mom and pop, small retail locations to institutional, the core assets. So it's really unique. And what the last 45 days have allowed us the opportunity to do, like many people, is just get on the phone and talk to people. I probably talked to more people in the last 45 days than I have in the 6 months before that, and people I haven't talked to in a long time. And really our goal as appraisers and our job has transitioned from looking at that historical info and factoring into today to, well, we still do that. Right now we're really focused on what's happening in real time. How are people adapting? How are people reacting? How are assets performing? How are collections? How are tenants within certain property types responding to this crisis? And then number two, how are lenders and buyers and owners underwriting that risk? I mean, we've been very fortunate, and some of the professional groups are proactive in gathering and disseminating information. You know, NMHC has done excellent with their rent tracker. For retail, you know, a lot of the REITs have published their first quarter results in the last few days, and that's held some really good information on collections. And the goal has just been track who's paying, track the rate they're paying, and then track how market participants are factoring that into their underwriting. In some cases, there's been impacts in values. In some cases, there hasn't. I mean, the biggest problem we have as a profession right now is we just don't have the sales data to show what's happening yet. I mean, I think people are kind of expecting over the next 45 to 90 days, we'll start seeing some change in pricing and seeing the impacts of this. But as of yet, there's not enough of that sale data to really quantify. So we're really looking at cash flows and focusing on that right now.
Yeah, never been a market like this before, has there? Well, not in our lifetimes.
No, not that happened this fast.
Mark Bennett here asked a question, and it's a question we get appraisals a lot here. Are you doing a blanket? I think people are saying they've seen a blanket COVID-19 adjustment to appraisals, minus 20%. Or is there? I mean, is that what you're doing, or is there a more thoughtful approach, or what's going on?
Well, I hope a more thoughtful approach. I can say that no appraisal I've signed has a blanket 20% adjustment in it. It's been really interesting because the Appraisal Institute and a lot of the valuation-oriented professional organizations were very quick to respond with education. And there was an Appraisal Institute educational webinar within the first 10 days of all the state shutdowns. And one of the things they really encouraged was do not do that. Do not say it's COVID-19, things are shut down, I'm adding 50 basis points to my cap rate. What they encouraged us all to do, and what hopefully I know our firm is really focused on, worked with our staff on, is to ask more questions. I've told my staff you need to ask more questions to more people than you ever have on an appraisal before. And it's very property specific. If we're doing a Class C or a workforce housing multifamily, there's some real quantifiable collection loss issues that are coming forth from the market now that we can factor into our appraisals. If we're doing retail, depending on the tenant, there is some real collection data, especially after all the REITs published their first quarter results in the last few days, that we can point to for real world data. I do not think that there should be just a blanket adjustment and say it's COVID-19. We've added probably 15 pages to our report, just walking through what we're seeing and then trying to relate that to the performance of the asset we're appraising. But until we see the actual sales data, until a month or two from now, when we can look at and say, you know what, property A was under contract pre-shutdown, it's still sold, but they cut it 10%. Until we can see a string of data like that, if that occurs, it's very hard to just do a blanket adjustment. You really need to dig deep and focus on the cash flows, focus on the tenants who are paying. If it's owner occupied, focus on the viability and the flexibility and the utility of the asset to see how broad the market for it is.
Let's jump over to Aaron and just talk about the banking and the money system and its reaction. And I know, Aaron, you can talk about your own product too, what you guys are thinking, but just in general, to start with, what's going on in the financial markets as it relates to, things in progress or loans?
Yeah, I've been on a lot of these calls. We raise our own capital on Bloomberg through bonds, fixed rate funds, which we're fortunate to do. But like many of us, I'm on the phone all day long with other lenders, banks, and I want the 30,000 foot view, and I want my fingers on the pulse of what's going on. I will tell you, it's scary out there. Margin calls, that is number one issue out there right now for many of the lenders, and dealing with margin calls and their liquidity. Even if they're not in a situation where the margin calls are hurting them, you see, companies and lenders hoarding cash just to get through this and to see what's going to happen, because this is so unprecedented. Like, no one knows what to expect or how long this is going to last. that's really the number one problem out there. And when I get on these calls, we're finding that lenders are one of three things. They're insolvent, they admit it, they've halted lending to hoard cash, or they've changed their guidelines to the point where they're really not doing much. It's kind of their way of saying we're not lending, but we don't want to say we're not lending. So, you know, in the commercial space, there's really not a lot of liquidity right now. But I think through many of these lenders that have gone through 08 and 09 and taking, you know, a very strong stance towards, hey, cash is king. And hopefully we get through the worst of this in the next, you know, let's call it 45 to 90 days. They will stay liquid and they will be able to lend. For us personally, we still have money coming in, and our investors expect their returns on bonds. That's just the way it goes. It's the world we live in. So instead of, because we are bonds, we have to collateralize our capital. And we've had meetings till the late hours at night on how we're going to do this. And if we change our guidelines because we are so niche-y, we're really not going to be able to show value in closed loans. So what we've done, and this is probably leads into some other questions and conversations, is we've changed our property type. What do we feel comfortable in? We believe that people are going to spend their money. The first two things they're going to spend their money on are food and their housing. So we don't lend on food, so we're going to lend on multifamily. And that's what we're doing right now. We're only taking multifamily in right now. And that's just where we're at. We're very cautious with the project types, the borrowers. You know, we're double checking, triple checking the appraisals. We are a bridge with stabilization with upside equity. So, you know, we are looking at that. But I think by the time we get 9, 10, 11, 12 months, we should have some type of normal back, especially in the multifamily. What scares me is just, you know, how many layers there are to this with a shutdown, because you have strip malls and you have office buildings, right? So you have companies that are in there. So in order for these companies to generate revenue, generate profits, everyone's got to be working, and everyone has to get out there and feel comfortable if they have enough liquid and to start spending money so that these companies can generate profits to pay their, you know, their landlords, so the landlords can pay their note. So it's an interesting time. It's a scary time, and yes, you want to be so cautious of this disease. But you know, at some point we've got to get this thing going again in a smart and strategic way, because there's so many layers to it. If you really dive headfirst into this thing, that you gotta look to when we can get back to business again, for everyone's sake.
Amen on that. I'm in Minnesota. You all are in Michigan. I think it was President Trump said, "Liberate Minnesota and liberate Michigan." So let's get back to work.
It's work. I mean, people have to work to make money, but again, for people to make money and for companies to generate revenue and their profits, people have to purchase. You have to have purchasing power, and people are hoarding, even not just companies, but people are hoarding liquid right now because so many people filed for unemployment. So it's going to take some time before people get back out there and spend. And, you know, we had over 3% GDP down to, you know, zero. That's like going 110 miles an hour down to 5 miles an hour. That's an analogy I've been using, and it's going to take some time, and it's going to take some time for repayment, you know, to strip malls, office buildings, and many, many other businesses. I'm just telling you about the space that we're in. And we can talk later in the program about some of the checks and balances, you know, interest reserves that we're putting into our loans to protect that. But you got to get this thing turned around. At least start to get it turned around.
I like your analogy, because you're going to bonk your head on the windshield if you do that.
Well, we have.
Right? We are.
We've slammed our head into the windshield.
Well, so let's bounce around to the other guys. But I think we've got a good group here that has a really broad experience and, you know, touch to real estate. So let's talk about the different types of real estate, what's being affected. I was on an industrial call this morning with Alfredo, and industrial people are like, life is good. You know, we're doing construction, we're building spec. Life is fine, especially in Chicagoland where there's a lot of activity, but that may not be the case in every other food group. Evan, I'm going to pick on you to talk about retail real quick. And, you know, is that the hardest hit, or what's the story there?
No, I wouldn't say it's the hardest hit. The two that come to mind that have really experienced some troubles are hospitality and entertainment. But in speaking to retail primarily, I mean, from the transactional side, we've continued to see investor demand grow. There are certain assets that do need a second look, and our investors and lenders need to understand what we have on hand with the existing tenants, who's abating, who's asking for deferments, who's staying open for business. But we've really seen REITs, private equity, family funds who have the dry powder or the cash on hand continue to pursue these assets, and it's really come down to a flight to quality. Assets in particular, or classes that we've seen progress, and dare I say, cap rates stay the same or even compress in a way. Grocery, home improvement, pet supply, dollar stores. What else? Pharmacy is a big one. I mean, anything that supplies, as you guys had mentioned, consumer goods. Those assets are open, thriving, and have shown themselves to be really a vital part of the economy and community during times of, during good times, during recessionary, and during this health crisis.
I actually, and this is a personal question, I hadn't thought about dollar stores. Are they going strong like grocery stores are? Is it about as busy as they've ever been? Absolutely.
So, I mean, you look at, over the last 2 years, cap rates on dollar stores have actually ticked up a little bit, little by little, because they've been growing at such a rate into secondary and tertiary markets that from the investment sales side, there was a lot of access to inventory. So they were a dime a dozen. But you look at it now, and these small market stores have functioned as the vital grocery store or supply store, virtually in every nook and cranny in the country. It's become a vital part of the system. They've got the infrastructure there, and they've done really well. I mean, and coming right out of the recession in 2012, 2013, Dollar General, for instance, was one of the only tenants with an aggressive expansion plan. They did 600 stores in 2012. Wow. So, you're getting folks that are taking, maybe they had 10 million in the stock market. They took a big hit. It's, I don't know, 7 million now. They take $1 million out of that stock market, and they can buy a 15-year Dollar General at a 7% return. It starts to make sense.
Steve, what's your take on the food groups, if you will, or real estate classes and sectors? Where's the good money going, or where's the money not going?
Well, one, I'm thankful every day that I wake up and I have something to go and do. A lot of my neighbors, a lot of my relatives, they're home doing nothing, and we're still working. I would say there's still a semblance of a market out there. We've certainly been impacted in many ways, in many different ways when you're talking different product types. I would agree a lot with what Evan just said about flight to quality. There's a lot of capital out there looking for stable places to go. There's not a lot of options, but certainly investment grade, single tenant, long-term deals is an area. We closed on a $50 million apartment building in Columbus last Wednesday. And in terms of our closings, we've been closing deals that we had in escrow that were close to getting closed. Most of that stuff's getting closed. So that deal we closed last Wednesday was an example of that. But that client's in an exchange, a $50 million exchange, and he wants to buy pharmacy. And I would agree with Evan. We are seeing actually a little bit of cap rate compression on some of those low risk, stable deals, interestingly enough. Certainly, though, that is not reflective in the balance of the marketplace. Anything multi-tenant, from apartment buildings to you name it, they're all struggling to varying degrees. I think each deal today you got to look at individually. But we are seeing some semblance of lending still out there, and if the lending market stays intact, the real estate investment transaction market will stay intact with it. Pretty much we're seeing the conduits out of the market. Life companies were out of the market. It looks like they may be trying to get back in a little bit right now. Most of the lending we are seeing is taking place with banks, regional, local banks, credit unions. That lending has some resource tied to it, so that's different. And certainly the sponsorship is very important. So qualified buyers who see opportunity today, I think they're starting to gear up. But by and large, what we're doing is really reaching out to our clients. Certainly they all started this year with a business plan that's been impacted, and we're trying to understand individually per client how they have been impacted, what they're doing and thinking in terms of course correcting and realigning their strategy. There's a lot of dust in the air. It's not real clear, as I think we all would easily agree. But it's a great time for us to further our relationships with our clients and see how we can help them in any which way we can. We're producing a lot of information, a lot of content, talking to a lot of people. So we're just trying to move that around as much as we can right now.
So, Steve, to follow up, if I had a $10 million allocation out of my pension fund, where would you steer me as far as what should I be looking at?
Well, again, I think stabilized deals, flight to quality deals. We do a lot of single tenant credit work, so that's an area. I have a team in the Detroit office that does a lot of HUD affordable housing work. That is a stable type investment in that the rents are guaranteed by the government. So again, things that are lower risk, people are looking at a few places. There's a lot. One thing that was clear in the pre-COVID market, there was a lot of money, equity and debt, chasing real estate deals. That equity is still looking for places to go. Their options are much more limited today, but there are a few places we could dig some deals out of the dirt, as I've been saying. And so things haven't turned off completely, highly impacted, but we still got things to do. So very thankful for all that.
I love how positive you all are. Oh, there we go. Alfredo, what are you looking at right now as far as real estate? Where are the good sectors?
Well, I mean, I think industrial is strong. I mean, obviously, as Aaron indicated earlier, multifamily is also, I think, going to come out on the positive side of it. But I do think, just come back a little bit to one of the comments you made with food. I think you can invest in food. It's just got to be refrigerated space. I think we were undersupplied on refrigerated space. I was claiming that pre-pandemic, and I still believe that. I even believe it's stronger now because I think with the growth in the grocery supplies and people going online now to order groceries and other foods, that is a sector that is going to grow. And I think if you have, it's a niche, it is capital intensive, but if you have the capital for it, I think it is a strong performer, and it's going to perform very well coming out of this, especially with all the new clients. Excuse me.
You're not supposed to cough anymore. That's the new rule. They do everything you can to not cough right now in public.
Go figure. I just swallowed wrong.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
But I do think, I do think industrial is positioned to come out very strong on this. That doesn't mean that we're not going to weather some bumps in the road. I do find in general the larger tenants that are over, let's say, 50, 75,000 square feet tend to be weathering the storm well. They're still operating. They may be operating under a reduced workforce, but they're still operating. And unless they are specifically tied to a retailer, that the retailer shut down, resulting in them sitting on inventory. They're a 3PL.
Yeah, I want to make it.
That's the fine line whether or not they're being impacted by it or not. But I do think they are doing well. I think the older guy.
God damn.
Yeah, I know, right?
Am I breaking up on you?
Yeah, that's okay. Just hold tight. It's tough right now. The internet's a busy place, and I think we've all figured out the value of a direct connection, or how many megabits download you have or an upload, and what's your ping. I learned what a ping is. I didn't know that was a thing. So the good things will come out of this. We'll all be a lot more savvy in webinars when we get done. Well, let's hit up another question. So you all said positive things, and I really love that. But does anybody have any horror stories? What are some of the maybe a mom and pop retailer, kind of the sad stories, things that have happened?
We have a couple of hotels that we have, in our portfolio, and I can tell you that, that sector has just been decimated. The one thing that we've done is we do everything in house. We don't hire out any of our third parties for servicing, draw requests, anything like that. So we've actually put these people in a place where we've given them the responsibility to work directly with them for the PPP, for the National Disaster Act, and help them to ensure that they can get these funds to survive. But you look at hospitality and entertainment, they've been just decimated by this COVID-19 shutdown. And then again, those are the sectors that you really worry about, because are people going to go out to dinner? Are they going to go out and see a movie, shows, entertainment, whatever it may be? We know they will, but when? And can these companies, hotels and restaurants, can they survive until they get back to generating the revenues to where they're profitable? And it's scary for them. It really is. And I think, as lenders, that's where we have to look at our interest reserves in case of this, or putting something on the back end payments. You really have to be, for any new loan right now, very cautious in case this does take much longer, or this happens again, or something, to that effect. But we're significantly increasing our interest reserve. Both, we have two, one for in case of default, and then one for the payments. We have two separate, and we're increasing both of those. And then you have to look at, for these sectors, or for any sector, when are they going to come back? How long is it going to take? But hospitality, you look at the restaurants, you look at entertainment. I mean, it's tough out there for these guys, and that's where I think, if you want to talk negative, and I hate to say it, that's where I'm scared.
Well, I think that's important. I think, because what I want to paint is a picture of what do things look like after we get through this, because it can't all be good. We know industrial's doing pretty well, especially in certain sectors. We know that grocery stores are doing well. We know that Target and Walmart are doing well, but we know that a lot of people aren't doing well. So anybody want to tackle the question? Go ahead.
The biggest horror story out there is obviously the health crisis, and how we get to the other side of that. I mean, they're all working out, but in terms of our business, you know, every one of our transactions has been a horror story. I mean, everything's getting retraded, everything's a fight. So really staying connected to your transactions, really on a daily basis, being in contact with all the principals on those transactions is really critical to keeping deals together. Because again, we're closing deals, but I bet you 90% of our transactions are being retraded at some level. The other interesting thing that's happening in this downturn is something that I've never seen before. I don't think any of us have ever seen before, but because everybody's at home, the simple moving a transaction forward, the logistics of moving a transaction forward, the simple task of getting our deed recorded. Nobody's around.
Yes.
So, you know, that has become a challenge in and of itself. That's new to and a bit of a horror story when it comes to our business. What it looks like when things turn around, you know, we lost 23 million jobs. How quickly those jobs come back, we're going to lose more. Sure. Is the telltale to how quickly the market returns. Is it V-shaped? Is it U-shaped? I think it's too early to tell. Whatever shape it is, though, on the other side of it, I think we'll see a steady return to a new normal, whatever that might be, and it's a time to stay calm and carry on. So that's what we're trying to do over here.
And
I would agree that
it's interesting.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say it's interesting to kind of piggyback off that. And I saw a question in the chat from Ryan Vinco about some specific timetables that he's seen put into appraisal reports. I mean, everybody just nailed it. I mean, Aaron started the conversation a few minutes ago about how long does it take? How do we know? And it's not even really a question of after this. It's a question of how do you define after? I mean, the governor just came out today and said that movie theaters, spas, and nail salons would be the last places to reopen. You know, so like what's that metric for after COVID-19 and how are you measuring that? I don't know how you can do that. And I mean, in terms of, you know, a number of you have all used that term flight to quality so far. I mean, that data is already out there in the real world. I mean, there's, we saw it, it was all over Cranes today. And if you look at some of the first quarter results, for the credit quality tenants, there is rent collection. For the non,
and this is a portfolio of, call it, more than 5 properties, have been the most common has been with a rent payment between 60 and 70%. Many of, you know, they were projecting 40, 50 and are happy with the 60 or 70. And I'd be curious to hear everybody's thought on what we think about, you know, May rents.
May is the determining factor, guys, because that's when people are going to hoard cash. You got to look at May. April, everyone's figuring it out. May, I think you're going to see some people at the end of this month where they got the PPP, where they got national disaster, anything locally. May is going to be the telltale.
I would agree with that. I'd agree, though, that April turned out better than people thought they were, although it was bad. And certainly what happens in May is the next big question.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I'd like to, restaurants got brought up a couple of times. I'd like to kind of change the narrative a little here. You know, going away from the horror story, I think, you know, there are certainly sit-down restaurants having a very hard time. But we saw a lot of the quick service restaurants. I work with a lot of operators and, you know, have surveyed all of them on a weekly basis to see where they're at, how they're doing. And the general consensus seems to be that the drive-through stores all over the country have these operators are anywhere between 60 and 80% of revenue that they're still going, which is, I think, is a huge number, you know, all things considered. There are certain operators that are well below that, but just like across every industry, some of the folks that were less stable even before COVID and may not survive after this, more than likely had issues well before COVID anyway, right? And this is just kind of the straw that breaks the camel's back. But quick service restaurants, I think will bounce back. There are even investors still considering those assets, especially those operators that have 600 plus stores. And then to Steve's comment about just how quickly, well, Steve and Matt, I guess that's the question being posed right now. How quickly can we recover? I think it's very hard to measure the time when that starts, but buyers, lenders, and sellers, I think, are all very eager. Tenants eager to get leasing again. So once those floodgates open, I think it'll be. It will be back to business a little faster than, say, 2008 crisis by comparison.
Yeah, I think.
Can I say one thing? Can I say one thing that, and not to be negative, but here's the only thing that scares me. Companies that are generating 50, 60, 70% of their normal revenue, what percentage of their workforce do they keep to do that? I just hope that in April they turn to profit or broke even or got a PPP or got a national disaster, something that put them over the edge into the black. That's my only concern for May. I'm very positive that we'll get through this and when, but like you said, some of them that, aren't very profitable or kind of on the edge, or even, some companies that are doing well. I mean, a big hit in April, you just don't know how that's going to affect them, and hopefully they get enough assistance from the government. But, you hope that they didn't keep too much staff on to keep them all employed, only do 50, 60, 70, and then took a real hit in April. And that's one of my concerns that I have with the companies that are still trying to stay open right now.
Yeah, and that actually leads right into the multifamily. I mean, there's a question about multifamily in downtown Detroit. I mean, you look at the markets and the areas that have been hit the hardest in terms of multifamily by this, and it all goes back to jobs and employment. Tourism markets have been hit the hardest. Places that are very technology heavy, where people are used to working remotely and stuff. Raleigh, for example, has not been hit nearly as hard. So, Aaron, that's a great point. Jobs, right. And if the jobs come back, people will move back into apartments. If the jobs are not there, then it's going to get hit. I think that's the absolute key here.
The one thing that I view in terms of jobs returning, again, they all lost their jobs because of the health crisis, not because of economic issues. So again, the pace in which it all turns back on, I think it's going to be a function of how long we're down. In other words, if we got back going here fairly quickly, they're talking about reopening now. Probably those jobs come back in a reasonable pace. If we're still talking like this 6 months from now, those jobs are probably coming back slower. But the one thing I'll share, and I think it's probably safe to say I'm the oldest person on this panel. So I've lived through a bunch of downturns, and there's one common denominator to each downturn I've lived through, and that is the other side of the downturn was a period where everybody said to themselves, this is the best we've ever seen it. So, and then that just kept, the downturn of the Great Recession, what happened after that was the best market we'd ever seen. So I don't know if that trend continues, but the other thing I've learned here on this call is we're not supposed to touch our faces anymore, and I keep touching my face, so I got to figure that one out.
Yeah, me too.
I've noticed the same myself.
Yeah.
Oh well, from what I've heard from people, we're all going to get sick anyways. So, yeah. Steve, you're first. I want to build on that just for a second, because we've done a lot of national webinars with some economists and stuff, and I've heard a lot more about it now. Instead of a Nike swoosh shape recovery, more of a bathtub. So we dropped off the edge, and we're going to drag along the bottom for quite a while. And so I think about things like my kid's graduation party. We moved it back to August. I'm telling you, I'm going to spend 3 times as much in this party, and I'm going to invite 10 times as many people, because I haven't gotten out of the house in so long. I can't wait to do something fun.
Well, that mentality means we recover pretty quickly. People will start spending.
Yeah, but then I hear news, and let me know if you guys are hearing the same things, that we may be right back where we're at today in the fall or winter. Does anybody want to touch on that?
The scientists are saying it's going to come back.
I mean, hopefully the medical teams have, at that point, learned from what's happening right now, and it won't be as bad, but who knows? I mean, yeah, I think the CDC leaders said that this morning, that the fall, when it couples with the flu, could be just as bad, if not worse.
CDC is saying it's going to be worse the second go around.
So what do we do?
Well, I think we're going to see that, tenants for one are going to tenants and then lenders for sure are going to underwrite now with a bit more caution, and have this new like I would underwrite a vacancy factor in a multi-tenant building, you're going to find tenants and companies are going to need to underwrite a 30-day zero revenue reserve, right?
Yeah.
So maybe instead of expanding 600 stores in 2021, Dollar General does 450 and keeps the rest of the cash on hand.
You build in payments into the loan for that.
Yeah.
I mean, we do it a CRE
right.
account. We do 6-month interest reserve in case of default, but you can build anything into a loan. You build payments into a loan like in a construction loan, but we're doing that now. I mean, you have to for any new loan. Build in 90 days additional in case of.
Right.
And I'll touch on this on the transaction, on the actual transaction side for brokers. I've gotten a question a lot from some owners. Okay, well, I don't want to put my property on the market today because I'm just going to get discounted significantly. And for multi-tenant, I mean, we can sell those deals today. Sure, it's a little harder to do. I've got to work a little harder, but we are taking, as long as you have a rent roll and a clear picture of who's open for business, this person abated rent, this person extended their lease by 15 months and we gave them a 3-month deferment instead, et cetera. If we got a clear picture of what's going on, and then we take any rents that were abated or deferred or any reserves needed for any skeptical or tenants were skeptical of, and offer up those rents in a escrow account at close to be paid out to the landlord and the lender for a period of time as a nice reserve. I mean, that can be factored into the underwriting on the front end, and it's one creative way we're able to transact, because regardless of this environment, there are people that need to buy deals, and there are people that this was the year to sell and this is the quarter to sell for their shopping center.
We're basically telling people when somebody comes to us and said, hey, should I take my deal to the market right now? We're basically saying, no, it's not a good time to take your deal to the market. They have a real need. They have a need, and then they want to find the best price, and for that deal at this time. And that's a deal by deal thing, as we've been discussing. Some areas that we're discussing with clients and where they may have transactional opportunity is one area being assumptions. Their current debt may line up better than new debt, because the underwriting is severe today. The reserves are severe. It's impacting cash flow analysis greatly. So if you could assume a loan where the LTVs line up favorably, the interest rate lines up favorably, that deal may hold its value more so than if it were underwritten with new debt. The other attractive thing of doing an assumption deal goes back to what we were speaking to earlier, which is the logistical challenges of moving the transaction forward. In an assumption, you wouldn't have third-party reports, other due diligence that wouldn't take place but need to take place, and those deals would move along more quickly and easily. The other area is seller finance deals. If you got somebody that has an appetite for that, maintaining the integrity of that value, where that deal will get underwritten much differently than by a bank or a credit union today. Those are areas you might be looking for.
Steve, I'm actually curious, something you said earlier that about 90% of your deals have been retraded. I guess two questions. Number one, is that more buyer aggressiveness, or like what's the real reasoning behind that? And number two, I mean, what are you seeing? Like, I've seen a couple get retraded in ballpark, 5%, but like what kind of range are you seeing, and what's really causing it?
That's all over the board. I think even if there's no reason to trade a deal, a buyer will say to himself, there's a window of opportunity to try. So I think they'll take their shot just to take the shot. But a lot of retrading going on by lenders at the closing table. So that has been probably the biggest issue, is keeping lenders in the deals. And the degree of retrading is, we had a deal, can't say too much about it because it hasn't closed yet, but we're right in the middle of trying to get it closed. And the original retrade was for 20% of the purchase price. And it looks like the deal's now going to close with no retrade. So in my mind, there was a buyer taking a shot. We had a seller who was savvy enough to see his way through that, and knock on wood, we're supposed to close that deal before May 1st. So It's all over the board. You better hang on, and you better stay very close to your transactions. That's the key.
I've heard all of you say communication is really important right now. Steve, there's a question in my list of things to ask. This one's really good, and I haven't heard it since this started. What would you tell a new person, a new real estate person? I just graduated college. Here I go. I'm going to Marcus and Millichap. I'm going to make cold calling fool. What are you telling them?
It's med school. It's frankly a great time to get into the business. New people never make money right at the beginning anyway. So to have the opportunity to learn when there's not a lot of transactions going on, there's an advantage to that. Having an opportunity to learn when it's this difficult, and the skills that you learn is how to matriculate through the most difficult of markets. Those are skills that will last that agent his lifetime, his career. What I'm saying to my brand new agents, because I got a good handful of them that have been in the business less than a year, some of them just getting ready to make their first calls. And that is, I'm looking at the market, and I'm really looking at two ways, the pre-COVID market and the post-COVID market. My view is the pre-COVID market is pretty much ancient history. And which means the post-COVID market is what's been going on the last 4 or 5 weeks. So for a brand new guy in my office, if he's got his ear close to the ground, Marc's Millichap's a tremendous amount of content, so we have an advantage there. But if he's got his ear close to the ground, if he's educating himself as to what's going on legislatively and how all this is impacting real estate owners, he can make calls today and sound as informed as our most experienced people. And the commodity today, our clients, here's one thing that we've discovered. Our clients want to talk to us more.
Information.
Our client call is lasting way longer. Clients want to talk to us. They want to know what's going on, and they want to know what's going on in the last 4 or 5 weeks. And if I'm a new guy, my whole curve, you're talking about curves getting flattened, his curve has gotten flattened, and his competitive challenge actually has gotten easier if he is taking the responsibility to get up to speed and sound intelligent when he's talking to clients. He's a good mentor. If he sees windows of opportunity to do business with that client, and he's pulling in his senior people to help execute on the transactions.
I couldn't agree more with that with Steve. I mean, the most vital thing today that our clients need is access to information. So, what tenants are asking for abatement, what lenders are doing, which lenders are retrading. I mean, everything has been changing at a rate of every 12 hours. So if a broker, and a new broker, can sit down and call every person in their database and just have that conversation. Hey, listen, I'm calling to survey what has impacted you so far. What questions do you have? And I'll take my list of notes and see if we can swap some of those notes. It's vital. I mean, I'm a very type A person, so to stay sane, I told myself I was going to wake up every morning from the day that I started quarantine, put real pants on, shave my face, and try and make this day as normal as possible. And so there's really nothing else to do outside of doing this at home, but to call your clients and be that source of information for them. And then in terms of getting deals, when you've got these clients where you have deals under contract, you got to set everybody's expectation to have a heightened level of patience. Everybody's got to work on the same side of the table like they did in 2011 and 12, buyers, sellers, and lenders, to agree to things, to give on things, to offer more time, to be more understanding. And if everybody can do that, and then you have a broker pushing every person involved in that transaction and holding everybody accountable, deals can be done. Marcus and Millichap's doing it, Encore's doing it. I think new brokers can too.
So we've got 5 minutes left. I'm going to go around and ask everybody for final thoughts. If you're watching this right now, now is your last chance to get a question in. So we've gone really broad. So if you can think of anything that you want to know specifically in a deeper kind of way, we're happy to touch on that. Got some good experts. Alfredo, you got a good connection. We're going to let you go first. What did you want to get in that you didn't? And any final thoughts?
Well, what I'd like to, I appreciate it, Todd. Again, thank you.
Yep, just keep talking. The video, I'll minimize it so it doesn't disrupt us.
What I'd like to make sure is we get in and is, during this time of pandemic, is realizing that the real estate is still a people business, and we need to make sure that we're reaching out to people, reaching out to our tenants, reaching out to our brokers, reaching out to our management teams, reaching out to our coworkers, and engaging. That is good for business and it's good for mental health. So I think during this time, we need to remember that, and we need to, as Steve said earlier, the advice we give the new guy to the business is make them realize that, stop sitting behind the computer, it's not analyzing. Those are all important, but it's also talking to people. And in this trying time, we're going to be talking to our tenants. We're going to be talking to our tenants about deferrals. We're going to be talking to our tenants about blend and extends. We're going to be talking to our lenders. And we're going to be talking to our lenders on new deals, on how they're going to be underwriting them, what is going to change there, coming up with creative ideas, how we can make something work that works for us and works for them as lenders. So just, the thought I would give everybody is just remember, we got to talk.
I like that. Let's go to Marc. Final thoughts, anything we missed?
No, I think I'm going to reiterate what everyone said. It's all communication. It's all talking to each other. When your appraisers call you, and it's like all the brokers said, frantically trying to keep deals together. Help us get the information we need. Don't leave it up to an appraiser to interpret the data themselves. Take the time to help us get our arms around the transaction. I mean, the biggest, regardless of strength of market, the biggest weakness we have is that you all are involved in stuff, 45, 60, 90 days earlier than we are. And we come in and have 2 weeks to learn everything you've done over the past 6 months. So especially in this market, when things are happening, just help us get us the data we need so that we can paint an accurate picture, and you all can get your deals through.
Go ahead, Evan. Final thoughts?
Sure. I would say we've got to focus on the silver lining. I think everybody needs to, for the sake of staying sane, I think the biggest and greatest is obviously our health. I wish this pandemic and this crisis wouldn't have happened, but the real estate silver lining is that it's absolutely going to create some really great buying opportunities based on certain needs. Retail tenants, sure, maybe some of them will go away, but that'll create opportunity for new, greater, and stronger companies to come in and take those spaces, and an opportunity for someone to buy that property at a call it reset rent. So we gotta keep looking at the silver lining. There's obviously a level of communication that everybody's acting with at this point in terms of online, and I think there will be a big social economic change after all this. It'll be interesting to see, but I think we'll be a little better for it. So use your brokers, your lenders, your appraisers as those people who are on the forefront and in the know, and can provide access to information to make those transactions happen.
Aaron, you're up.
Thank you. Yeah, I think communication is at this time the utmost importance, and that is get on as many of these webinars as you can, talk to as many banks, direct lenders, appraisers, have your finger on the pulse of this market, because we've done a 180 in the last 30 to 45 days to the negative. It will come back. There will be a silver lining. I get that, but if to succeed in this ever-changing market, and it is going to be a new normal, it's going to be vitally important for you if you're going to be successful to understand where we're going and how we're going to get there. And that is, I can't, I'm on these, all day long. And that is just to know where everyone's at and what they're doing. And, use all of your resources, talk to brokers, lenders, banks, appraisers, title companies, and do as many of these as you can. And just, you have to do it every day. And it's going to have to be done for a while as we get through this. And I think really that's the most important way for us to be successful. We're going to have to start working together. We're doing a lot of things where we're looking at, what's called pari passu with other lenders. And we're going to have to really buckle up here, work together to get through this, because it 90 days are going to be tough. Let's not kid ourselves. We'll get through it, but it's not going to be easy.
You broke up the next how many days?
I mean, I think, 90, to be honest. I think to really break through, I think if we open up May 1st, I think, there's a lot of people that are going to want to, people want to work. I mean, listen, I don't want to get into it, but I say people rather, be sick than broke. And I know that's a terrible thing to say, but that's what I'm hearing. Okay. Well, it's not my personal opinion. People want to work. People want to make money. They want to get this economy going again. I think you get started May 1st. I think 90 days we'll start moving forward and moving forward in a good direction because people want that.
Yeah. Steve, did we hit you for final thoughts yet? I think
sure. No, I haven't heard the people rather be sick versus broke thing, but I believe there's life after COVID. So COVID's taken a lot of our life away, lots of loss of future loss. And so I think we got to control what we can control, echoing some of Evan's comments earlier, trying to keep your days normal as possible, showering, having goals for the day, trying to take as much control of what you can control as possible right now, I think is really important. One little shout out I'll give for us is we're recruiting. So anybody interested in getting into the business right now, give me a ring. We're doing it virtually. We're hiring people all over the firm virtually. And that's been interesting. And other than that, I'd like to thank you guys and wish everybody very much safety and health and appreciate the opportunity today.
Yeah, I got to echo that, Steve. It's a great time to pick up talent. There's a lot of people without jobs.
Exactly.
If you're ready for that, and if the government's making your payroll for the next 8 weeks, then that's a bonus.
There you go.
We've hired we took on a new broker during all this.
Yeah. Yeah, we hired somebody too down in Houston.
Good.
Yeah.
We're all doing our part then.
Right, there you go. Well, thanks again, everybody. Everybody that's watching online, you have my email address. I can pass emails on to these folks. Hopefully you were able to get their emails as I put them up on the screen. If you want to rewatch it, it'll be available on YouTube. I'll send that link out to all of you when we get done and when we get it uploaded. All of the chat questions will go out to the speakers too. So if there's something on there we missed and they want to hit you up with an email, they can do that. Thanks again, everybody. I'm going to leave this on for about 2 more minutes to let the chat room run as people say thank yous and final messages, but you're free to sign off. And thanks for your time and look forward to doing it again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Good to see you as always, Steve.
Evan, take care, man. Nice meeting all you guys. Hey, Marc.
Yeah.
You want to do like a little workshop for my office on how appraisers are looking at things?
Yeah, I'd love to. I actually did one for all the Marcus and Millichap Capital Markets guys on Friday. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was on that call. Yeah.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to hear it twice, I'd be happy to.
Well, my agents weren't on that call, so that'd be great.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah,
that'd be valuable.
I'll reach out to you. We'll schedule some.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Thanks, guys. It was great.
Yeah, nice meeting you guys.
See ya.
All right. Take care.
See y'all.